Shalom lekulam, and welcome to receiving and giving lessons on the Sefer Zohar, the book of Splendor, the book of Zohar. This is class number 8. Today we're going to continue the study of the section of the Zohar called the Prologue, and inside this section we have other sections or important subjects that are covered. And in the last section, we were talking about the part in the prologue where it says, what is called actually, the mother lends her clothes to her daughter. And what we said there was that basically what is happening is that Bina lends her clothes, basically gives Malchut, which is the daughter, gives Malchut its qualities of bestowal. Malchut, as we recall, is a desire to receive, is pure desire to receive, and Bina is pure desire to bestow. So what's happening here is that Bina is basically giving these qualities to Malchut, and we explained the whole process how this actually takes place, which is basically kind of like an ascension of this Parsuf into a higher level in which Malchut takes the place of Bina and becomes basically Bina itself, meaning, it clothes itself with the qualities of Bina. Now what we're going to see is in the new section that we're going to be studying is called the letters of Rabbi Hamnuna Saba. We're going to be talking about letters, and we're going to know what these letters actually mean, and we're going to touch a lot of subjects here when it comes to the letters, okay? And this article itself inside the prologue, it's a very hard article to understand for some people because in one paragraph it might encapsulate a lot of information. And for example, we're going to be, like always, dissecting each of the paragraphs that we are studying, but in the beginning we're going to be studying the nature of the letters, what actually the letters are all about and why the letters are so important. Because in this article, we have kind of like an introduction to what we call meditations on the letters. So when we meditate on certain code or Hebrew code letters, for example, like the one that we're going to be meditating once we start studying the Zohar, these are names of God that have been basically filled with letters of other names of God. And these are basically codes, and you don't really have to understand the code consciously, because unconsciously this is actually something that it will happen. And here we're gonna see why, because it's all about not the only the desire to know what these letters mean, but it's the intention behind scanning these letters. It's the intention that counts, and that's why it's important as well that when we study the Zohar, we keep that in mind, that it's not the desire to acquire knowledge, even though we do want to understand what the Zohar is saying, learn from the Zohar so we can basically understand the laws of nature, the laws of spirituality, and live basically better, live according to these laws, and understand when good things happen that it comes from above, and when bad things happen, this still is for our own benefit. And the thing is that when we study the Zohar, we need to have an intention, and that intention is to connect with the light, and we connect to the light by keeping the intention of loving ourselves first, right? And loving our neighbor as we love ourselves. And when we commit to that intention, we are automatically loving the Creator, because who created us? Who created the fellow human being? The Creator himself, right? So that's the reason we emphasize, like, you gotta love yourself first and then love the neighbor. You cannot love the neighbor if you don't love yourself. In fact, if you really look at people that hate other people, it's because they're not happy with who they are. So they kind of like become kind of bullies, trying to find a way to victimize other people so they can feel bigger, better than others. And that's not loving yourself. That's not loving your neighbor. And it's all the contrary. So we will try in here is to put the seed in our heart as we study the Zohar. And instead of finding any excuse to hate our neighbor, we find any excuse to love our neighbor. We don't have to agree with what our neighbor thinks or does. We have to only know that deep inside, everybody's connected. Deep inside, whatever we see wrong with that person is a reflection of who we are inside us. Because everything that is happening in the world, basically all spiritual worlds, and everything in the universe is inside us. Okay, so what we see in other people is basically our own imperfect relationship with the Creator. Okay, so let's start with that intention. Okay, and so we can continue with our study. So the first thing that I'm gonna ask you is to concentrate and scan the letters that you see in front of you. Make sure you scan them from your right to left, and then we're gonna say a prayer from the Ari to study the Zohar. A prayer from the Ari, Rabbi Isaac Luria, to be recited before the study of the Zohar. Ruler of the universe and master of all masters, the Father of mercy and forgiveness, we thank you, our God and the God of all forefathers, by bowing down and kneeling, that you brought us closer to your Torah and your holy work, and you enable us to take part in the secrets of your holy Torah. How worthy are we that you grant us with such big favor, which is the reason we plead before you that you forgive and acquit all our sins, and that they should not bring separation between you and us. And may be your will before you, our God and the God of our forefathers, that you will awaken and prepare our hearts to love and revere you. And may you listen to our utterances and open our closed hearts to the hidden studies of your Torah. And may our study be pleasant before your place of honor, as the aroma of sweet incense. And may you emanate to us light from the source of our soul to all our being. And may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you reveal your holy wisdom to the world, shine. May their merit and the merit of their fathers and the merit of their Torah and holiness support us, so we shall not stumble through our study. And by their merit enlighten our eyes in our learning, as it is stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes so that I will see the wonders from your Torah. May the Lord give wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. May the utterances of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, God, my strength and my Redeemer. So, like I said, we're going to be starting a new section. It's called the Letters of Rabbi Hamnuna, Saba. And this section is going to take probably, hopefully I estimated kind of like two parts, but it might take three depending on how this thing developed, right? And also, some questions, that may arise from some of the students. So let's start reading, and then we're gonna start explaining each other paragraph. Okay, so let's start. Say, Rabbi Hamnuna Saba said, in the first 4 words of the Torah, Bereshit bara Elohim et, the first 2 words begin with the letter Bet, and the following 2 begin with Aleph. It is said that when the Creator thought to create the world, all of the letters were still concealed, and even 2,000 years before the creation of the world, the creator gazed into the letters and played with them. So what we're gonna see is, let's see if I can highlight. This is the word Bereshit right here. What you're gonna see right here in this area as a bait. But when you look at the words in Hebrew, Bereshit bara Elohim, the first two words begin with the letter bait. Okay, and as always, before I start explaining, we're using the Baal Hasulam commentary, and so it's a little bit more in depth. It's just not something superficial. So we're gonna be going in depth in some of these explanations as we go. So you're gonna find yourself, what does this have to do with these paragraphs? And it's because by using the Baal Hasulam takes us to different levels of these paragraphs inside the Zohar. Okay, so it says Baal Hasulam that basically in the language of Kabbalah, the Bereshit bara Elohim et, these 4 words, actually mean that when the creator Bina decided to create the world, which is Zon. And what is Zon? Let's go back to make sure we understand where we are at. So the creator, find something. The creator basically is Bina. Okay, so we have Garda Bina, Sata Bina. And here the creator is gonna create Zon, and Zon is basically Serampin. Serampin, it's considered the word of Asilut, and we're gonna see later how that works. And Zon is basically Serampin and Nukba, Serampin and Mahut. Okay, so we see Zon is basically this here. And it says that Hokma and Bina, this is Abba and Ima, Abba and Ima here, they're called 2,000 years, which means before the creation of the world, before the creation of Zon, the letters, which are basically Kalim, the letters are basically vessels of light, they were existing already in Abi in the form of Ma'inukbin. Ma'inukbin are basically the feminine water, okay? That stimulate the desire of the upper one to attend to it. And this is important to know these concepts, Ma'inukbin and Ma'in Druchin, which we're gonna touch base on those when we start explaining the letters. So in regard to any parsuf that is below any parsuf, for example, we have Avi is in the top, right, and Yeshut, and then we have Zon, which is Serampia Marhut. When it comes to Zon, whatever parsuf is in the top, whatever parsuf is above, is considered the creator. Okay, it's called creator because it's from this parsuf that the lower parsuf is created. Okay, so that's why when it comes to us, any level above us, spiritual level above us, it's part of the creator. It's part of what actually makes us, what created us actually. So because of that, any parsuf that is above, it will actually require a stimulus, some kind of stimulation from below, and that stimulation from below is called the feminine water request. It's like a deficiency that the lower parsuf have for the light, and this parsuf in the bottom will actually go to a higher degree or request to the higher degree to bring that light, okay, to bring that light down. Since the lower one in here is Zon of the word of Atzilut, and everything below this parsuf is basically the word of Biyah, which is a Bria, Yesira, and Asiyah, and the Lam Hasem, right? These are considered basically part of Zon. So let's put it this way to look at this here. So Zon is Serampin and Marhut. And Marhut and Serampin are the world of Atzilut. Then we're going to have Briah, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. But all this is basically considered part of Atzilut. It's just different levels of that level of Atzilut. So when it comes to the Asiyah, Yetzirah, and Briah, Atzilut is basically like kind of like closer to the creator. So it's kind of like the creator itself, even though, you know, it's not the creator per se, because the creator is up above, you know. But when it comes to us below, this is the closest thing we have to the creator. So this is where we do the request. Depending on what we attain in each of these level, right? Because each of these level exists also in the lower levels, which is where, you know, like Asiyah will have an Atzilut, it will have a Yetzirah, and also a Briah, you know, all that. So depending what level we're reaching, you know, that's the quality of light that we're gonna be receiving from the upper Parsuf. Okay, so understand that 2000 years is basically Abi in here. Okay, now the desires and properties of this Parsuf Son, Serampin and Nukba, they are called letters. The letters are basically vessels of light. They are going to manifest information, to use a modern term. If you know about information theory, know that these letters are basically the way that the creator is going to send down somehow information from above, because we're sending information from below as a form of request, as a form of a prayer, right? As a form of deficiency. When he says that the creator played with these letters, basically that move them around to see what will work with it or not, or how it's basically saying, I want you to picture in your mind, if you're familiarized with the DNA, genetics, the DNA of basically every living creature. Every living creature has a DNA, and this DNA has a code that will give characteristics to every human being, every animal, every flower, everything, right? So this is what it means, you know, the creator play with these letters, creating kind of like different codes and permutations of this letter in order to create something. We're gonna see later how that plays out, because you're gonna see the creator having a conversation with the letters and telling the letters, you will not be chosen to be the first letter to start with in the Torah, because you are the letter used for this word or that word or this characteristic or this quality. Okay, so the order of the Hebrew alphabet indicates the descent of the light from above, or the ascent of this Nubian. We're gonna see that now. Okay, so when we do a request to the creator, what we have is the following: is that we will have, and this is what the Zohar is gonna be doing here, we will have the following. We start with the letter Tov, and we're gonna finish with the letter Aleph. All right, so this is what we're gonna see here in the letters of Rabbi Hamnuna Saba, that the first letter to appear is Tov, because the Zohar here is helping us understand how these Nukvin, feminine water, this prayer, this request work, why it is important. However, as we're gonna see, it doesn't end. The creator doesn't end up using the letter Aleph as the first letter for the Hebrew alphabet, and then we're gonna see why, right? That's a mystery. Now, when we have a kind of like a answer from above, the letters are gonna start with the letter Aleph, and it's gonna end with the letter Tav. So what we're gonna have here is the following. We're gonna have in both sides, basically, we're gonna have the Aleph and the Tav. And this is what we're gonna see in this in this paragraph where it says, you know, Bereshit, in the beginning, bara, created, Elohim, et. Et is an aleph and a taf, okay? And that aleph and a taf are the beginning and end depending on what kind of action we are basically seeing in the spiritual. So if it is a request, we're gonna start with the taf, and we're gonna end up with an aleph. If it is an answer, a fulfillment of that light coming down to the vessel and fulfilling the vessel as an orpinimi, as an inner light, then we're gonna start with the aleph, and we're gonna end up also with the taf. Okay, so remember that. That's how the letters actually work. Taf aleph, mein nukbing. Aleph taf, mein duching, which is an answer from above. It says here that the reverse order of the letters alludes to the ascent of the returning light. So we have a descent of the direct light from above, which is the or yashar, and above, and the inner light that fills the parsuf. That's basically the descent, which is the mein dukrin. And then the reverse order of the letters alludes to the ascent or returning lights, right? So it's like this request, this thing basically, and it's telling us that the order of the alphabet refers to mercy. You know, the direct order basically, when mein dukrin, the answer is mercy, the request is actually considered as a restriction. It's restricted. It has to be done basically by the law of what we call justice or severity. That's why we have to ask for it. We have to really work hard. If you gotta have a genuine desire, genuine intention to receive that light. And how does this work? So let's see if I can find. So you have the Or Yashar, right? And the Or Hoser, and then you have the Or Pinimi. So the Or Yashar that becomes the Or Pinimi, meaning the direct light that becomes the inner light, is basically what we call the light coming from right to left, which is mercy. And then the light coming from left to right is the Or Hoser. And this has nothing to do to what is good, what is bad, or anything like that. What it's telling you is the following. The vessel will receive that light, right, according to the desire that is here, to that deficiency. But that desire basically has to do what is called here, is based on restriction, right, has to do a request. And that request is called prayers. A prayer. And a prayer is not let's say we take a Siddur and we're reading the Siddur, and we do the prayers 3 times a day, that kind of stuff. This will be basically just words coming out of your mouth, and they'll have basically no meaning because there's no intention. There's nothing there. There's no restriction. You gotta restrict yourself. You gotta basically have this egoistic nature somehow under control. And that's why the Or Hoser, which is the light, the reflected light, is all about. Is I will receive the light only with intention to please the Creator. And that's why it reflects the light. This is basically a desire to receive, only with the qualities of the Creator, only with the qualities of Bina, only with the qualities of receiving in order to give back. So basically you're giving back. You receive light, you give back. Now, when you receive the light, which is the answer will come then as mercy. Mercy from the Creator, light of mercy, basically. So understand this concept. Mein Nukbin is restrictive. Mein Dukrin is basically mercy, okay? So we have that. It says that this is when Adam Harishon, the first Adam, committed the sin, the letters detach from him, and only the letter Shin and Tov, or the light of Vak, meaning Nefesh, stay in him. So let me see if I can find. Okay, so this is something that we need to. So when he's talking about the light of Nefesh, the light of Nefesh is the light words that is found in Hot Netzach Yesod. So the light of Nefesh is basically seen in the Hebrew letters as a dot underneath the letters, and this dot is called Hirik. Okay, it's called Hirik. Now the light of Ruach is like a dot inside the letter, and this one is called Shuruk. The Neshama, which is the light, basically a dot above the letters, is Cholam, and this is Tiferet, Yesod, and Netzach. If I'm, Netzach, just to make sure, here's your guide. We're gonna talk about this later. We understand this, that this is Nehi, Hagat, and Chabat. So here it says that only Nefesh remain in him. And these letters, or the Kalim, or the vessels of the light of Neshama, are represented by the letters from Aleph to Yod. The letters from Yod to Kuf are from the light of Ruach, and the letters from Kuf and Resh are the Kalim of Gar of Nefesh, which is Gar, are the first 3 Sephiroth of Nefesh. But these are the ones that disappear for him. He only had the lower 7 of Nefesh. So basically it's like when we're talking in here, we have Ava Ve'ima, we have Yeshut, but we have Zon, and Zon is 7 Sephiroth right here, right? But also we're gonna see Gar Devina and Sad Devina, which is Vak as well, V-A-K, and it's lower 7 with a head, but then we have Serampia Mahud with no head, right? So like I say, it's gonna be kind of confusing to understand it, but just take it slow. In fact, if you wanna say, okay, whatever he said right now, I'm gonna ignore it, let's continue with the next part, that would be perfect, because it's so complicated to understand this specific part of the Zohar that you might have to read over and over again, okay? But just understand that. So that's for now. Understand that when Adam sinned, the only letters basically that stay within were the one that represented the Nefesh, the life of Nehi, okay? This is why Adam gave his son born after he sinned the name Set. The name Set is basically Shin and Tov. I don't think I have it there. I'm gonna write it for you right here. So that's the name, right? Now what happened was the following. According to the Kalim, according to the vessels that remain in him, he named him Set. The vessel Shin Tov or Set are only fit for the returning light, the light that is for basically what we call the desire to bestow. But that's the light from below upward, with no reception of the upper light from above downwards. However, after it received Yesod or Serampin, which is the Ruach, right? From above downward, it received Yesod or Serampin, turns into a combination of Shin, Yod, Tav. So now we had Shin, Yod, Tav, and turns into a combination. That combination, remember combinations of letter, and the Creator creates the world by the letter. And if the Creator creates the world by the letter Bet, it then enters between the Shin and the Tav and forms the word You guys know this one, Shabbat. Okay, so now I hope you guys understand where Baal Hasulam is going with this. The state of that's a state of spiritual perfection. That's the goal of creation. For this reason, the first word in the Torah, Bereshit, consists of bara, right? And then we have sheet. That's Bereshit. So the combination of the Shin Yod Tav is basically let's put it this way. When Adam sinned, the only thing that he had was Nehi. Because of Nehi, he had only Nefesh. Then when he had this desire, because of the Shin and Tav, he acquired the Yod. The Yod is basically Ruach. But then because of the desire continues, the desire for perfection, the Creator continues, then instead of a Yod, you get a Beit, which is the letter to start the creation, and that's when you get Shabbat, you get a rest, a completion, the goal of creation, which is acquire Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. Okay? And that's the perfection he's talking here. And that's why the Beit basically was chosen for, or to be, the first letter of the Torah, in this sense, in order to make sure that we are acquired that. So in the beginning, he created Shit. Shit is Nefesh, Ruach, and then at the end, the 7 days, Shabbat, and then the completion with the Neshama. So he's creating here, he's telling us the secret behind this is the following. He's creating a soul or a vessel with this kind of levels, and this soul is actually all of us. Is Adam, is it's like Adam, sinned before completing Shabbat. He ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil before Shabbat. Should have waited and enjoyed Shabbat. He could have then used the tree of good and evil, or the tree of knowledge, for the good of all creation, but he did it before that. Okay, so in this way, what he's telling us here is the whole creation, everything that we're basically living, the reason we're studying Zohar, the reason we study Kabbalah is to reach that Shabbat. Okay, so let's continue with other paragraphs so we can then go in more depth some of this stuff. So when the Creator thought to create the world, all the letters of the Hebrew alphabet came to him in reverse order from the last to first. Remember what we said, right? This is a request, right? The letter Tav entered first and said, Master of the world, it is good and also seemly of you to create the world with me, with my properties, for I am the seal of your ring called the truth, that ends with the letter Tav. And that is why you are called truth, and why it will benefit the king to begin with the universe with the letter Tav, and to create the world by her property. The Creator answered, You are beautiful and sincere, but do not marry the world that I conceive to be created by your properties. You are destined to serve as a mark on the forehead of the faithful, who have kept the law of the Torah from Aleph to Tav. When you appear, they shall die. Not only that, but you are also the seal of the world, of the word death. And because of this, you are not suitable for me to create the world with you. The letter Tav then immediately left. So the letter Tav appeared to the Creator, right? It's the last letter. And basically saying, I am the letter that basically says here, the letter enter first, since that I am basically fit to be used to create a word, to be the first letter, because basically I am the letter that has to do with truth. But truth is the following. Truth starts with the Aleph, the middle letter is Mem, and the Tav. This is all the letters of the alphabet, believe it or not, are included in this word called emet, truth. You got the first letter of the alphabet, the middle letter of the alphabet, and the last letter of the alphabet. But when you are missing the mem, when the mem is not there, it becomes mut, which is dead. So even though it's truth, there's no mem in it, and mem is a lot of symbolism with the mem that we're gonna then study all that. But the mem, the numerical value of mem is 40. 40 is basically has to do with 40 gates. It has to do with 40 days, 40 nights in the desert. It has to do with all these symbolism that you're gonna find in the Torah. If you don't have that path, if you don't have that correction of what is called the 40 days or 40 gates, you will not basically achieve the receiving of the Torah, and you are basically a vessel without light. Mem is mime is mercy, okay? And mime is water means mercy, right? So if you don't have mercy in your life, you are dead. You have no light in your vessel. You might as well be a person that is probably intelligent, a person that has knowledge, that does a lot of things, right? But you are basically ruled by the laws of nature. You are ruled by the laws of cause and consequence, and you are not ruled by the spiritual laws of basically the laws of nature, which is you give and receive, and you receive and you give, and that you are good as the Creator is good, right? And that you do good as the Creator is good, that you are basically emulating that desire called Bina, the desire to give, the desire to bestow. That's what Mem is all about. It's mercy, is the waters of mercy, okay? So think about that, because then we're going to talk about the Mem, because the Mem is going to give us also another meaning. Okay. So some information here that is kind of it's gonna be confusing if we talk about it, but basically I'm gonna say it. It's that the 22 letters, according to the Baha Sulam, are in a state of what is called Ibur, and I haven't explained what is Ibur and Yenika and all these phases yet. I'm gonna try to explain it later in another class, but understand that these are states of from small to greatness, okay? So right now they're in a state of smallness, and they are in an embryonic phase of the future Parsuf in the Sephirat Yesod, okay? So when we look at the drawing, what we're gonna see is that we have here Serampia Marhut. So somewhere around here you're gonna find Yesod, and Yesod is symbolized by the letter Yod. Remember the Yod in the, let me go back, the Yod, Shin, Yod, Tav, that's the Yesod, remember? And they're in embryo right there. They're like, basically, to use a term, you know, biological term, they are in a state of what we call the seed, the sperm, right? They're not basically yet grown into a baby, or maybe not go down to Mahut in order to impregnate it and create the world. So when it says here that having in mind that each name that we find in the Torah is basically a spiritual property, or the spiritual property of an object, we will understand what is the meaning when a person's name is changed, when a place name is changed and when an action name is changed. So there are those of us, just to give you an example, that when we study Torah, we see that Abraham became Abraham, right? Sarai became Sarah. We have other instances in which we had Jacob becoming Israel. So there's a change in it, right? It's just basically spiritual properties that they have attained. There are those of us who have what we call a secular name, and we have a spiritual name. So in my case, my secular name is Ramon Santiago. My spiritual name is Ramon Jacob ben Abraham, right? That's my Hebrew name that will appear in Ketuvah, will appear, in certificates of Bar Mitzvah, things like that. Ben Abraham. But in the world, I'm known, as Ramon Santiago. Why? Because it's a physical, and then there's a spiritual, right? So you're gonna find that there's people, like gonna have their own name, probably, means the same thing in Hebrew. For example, my two kids, their Hebrew name is the same secular name that they have, so there's no change there. But some people, have two names according to some traditions in exile, right? If you're in Israel, you have a Hebrew name, and or you adopt a Hebrew name when you did Aliyah and things like that. But this is what it actually means: is you're basically adopting new properties, new spiritual properties. So the name Havaya, the Yod He and the Vav He, is the basis for all letters. It's basically the foundation of all letters. But the feeling of each letter clarifies the letter itself. So when you fill the letter Aleph with an Aleph, Lamed, and Pei, that will give you the real meaning behind that letter Aleph, right? The feeling of the letter is heard as the letter is pronounced. So it's Aleph is Aleph, right? Aleph, Lamed, Pei, or Pei. So the creator's properties basically are formed by his actions. So by his deeds, we know basically who he is. So there's 3 lines in Bina. The creator, these 3 lines are imprinted and act in his created beings, the lower words, as seals and its imprint. So somehow we have that. So when you read the Bereshit, the book of Bereshit, you're going to hear that Adam was created at the image and similar to the creator. Is because we are an imprint, not equal, but we're an imprint of what the creator is all about. Therefore, we're going to see, that there are names like the name 42, Membet, that exists in Bina, and as well as in Zerampin and Mahut. However, in Zerampin, the name is divided into 10 sayings and 32 forces of creation of Elohim, which create Mahut, the creature. And we can go in depth of that, but there are 10 sayings that were used, and there are 32 forces of creation of Elohim, 32 mentions of the name Elohim. And this is what is meant in here. Bina is designated by the letter Mem. So if Mem is not in the Aleph, let's say here, if Bina is not there, that desire to bestow is not there, then the person is dead. But then you have, these 42 Membet, designating the creation of Marhut by Bina. The letter Aleph designates Zerampin, which passes all the 22 letters from Aleph to Tav to Marhut, which is the Bet. Remember Bet, Mem, Bina, Bet, Marhut. This is why Marhut is called Et, Aleph, Tav. Okay, so Marhut is basically that Et, right? That fulfillment of when it gets fulfilled, it's called Et. It got fulfilled from Aleph to Tav completely. You have to remember that Malchut is the central pole of creation and the purpose of creation. It's basically the only creation and includes all the worlds and all the creatures that inhabit those worlds. Okay. Also says, to keep in mind that Malchut is called the Shekhinah, the divinity, as she is filled with the light. Filled with the light, it means Shochen, which means like a dweller. The Creator dwells in it, so that's why it's Shekhinah from Shochen. When Malchut feels the Creator within her, she's called a Shekhinah. If man being part of this Malchut purifies himself from egoism, either partially or completely, and thus fill his corrected desires with the light, the Creator becomes part of the Shekhinah. So somehow you are bringing that light to the Shekhinah, and the Shekhinah feels the Creator. Malchut consists of 4 parts, and these parts are going to be found in Ezekiel, the book of Ezekiel, also called faces: the face of a lion, the face of an ox, the face of an eagle, and the face of a man. And Malchut also likened to a spiritual kernel surrounded by shells, which correspond to the 4 klipot or impure forces, which are called Ruach Seara, which is the stormy wind, Anan Gadol, great cloud, Esh Mitlakachat, blazing flame, and Noga, radiance. This is from the book of Ezekiel. You're going to find that, okay? So, also, there are Kabbalistic terms that are basically composite, or like Matzil. Matzil means you can say like the creator, the essence, the real essence of everything. It's really hard to translate into English, Matzil, but it comes from cell, from shadow, right? The creator emerges from the creator's concealment, or the creature emerges from the creator's concealment, from his restriction, from the restriction of the creator. If you've been studying Kabbalah with us, we talk about the Tzimtzum Aleph, Tzimtzum Bet, and from that restriction that the creator did to the light, it's how we get to know him, it's how we get to see these actions that he performs, of these actions that we think is the light, but the light doesn't change. Very important to understand this. The light doesn't change. What changes is the perception of the vessel to the light, depending on the calculation the vessel is doing at that moment, what kind of correction the vessel is doing. And this is where we're gonna see that we're gonna be calling the creator different names, like Bore, which means a combination of Bo, come, and Re, which means see, come and see. We're gonna see other names, for example, like we have here, that are attributed to every Sephiroth, to the Sephiroth. For example, in Keter we have Ehye. To Chokma we attribute the name Ya. Bina we have the Yo, He, the Vav, and the He. In that we have we say Ahva, Chesed El, Geburah Elohim, Tifaret, the Yo, He, and Vahem. You're gonna say, but don't you have that in Bina? Remember, look at the name. The name has different nekudot, different points. Okay, so one is gonna be Adonai, the other one, with the punctuations of Adonai and things like that. We're gonna have also Netzach, Yohe, and the Vavhe Tsevaot. And in Hot we're gonna have Elohim Tsevaot. In Yesod, El Chai or El Shaddai, and in Malchut, Adonai. Okay, then we're gonna have codes for each of the months, and this is something that we're gonna see a lot in Kabbalah when it comes to the months. It's part of meditations. Is the Yod He and the Vav He with different nekudot, and each nekudot, these nekudim actually, points that you see in the letters, they all also belong to the level where these names are gonna be. And these names, as you can see here, Yesod has more letters. And why does it have more letters? Because Yesod takes all the letters from all the upper Sephiroths and becomes that siphon, that transmitter, that kind of a pipe where those letters are gonna go to Malchut, okay? And then we're gonna have also what is called in the Sidur, where we're gonna have also different kinds of meditations with codes and that kind of stuff, and you're gonna see repetitions of letter, and why do I have to repeat this and that kind of stuff. These are combinations of letters. These are things that are going to somehow make you feel that light within your vessel if you do it properly. But this requires a lot of training, a lot of practice, a lot of years of practice actually, because also requires some memorization. So I don't want you to go deep into this so much, but just know that this comes from the Zohar. This is not something that was invented, okay, out of nothing. It's all right. So when we talk about, when we're talking about how the letters, for example, we're talking about how the letters, in this case Aleph, when we read it, or we write it as we were going to read it, Aleph, Lamed, Med. These letters are basically a feeling of that letter. We also have feelings of the name Yod, He, and Vav, He. And according to these feelings, it's gonna be a representation. This is important because it's gonna appear a lot in different meditations, and it's gonna appear a lot in different sections of the Zohar that you're gonna see. Where does this come from? And it's very important to understand. Let me move this to the side here. It's better. All right. So the first one is, we have Gagalta, right? So this is basically Malchut. Malchut after the first restriction. Remember that Tzimtzum that happened when the light basically created that center, and then there was a line that wanted to fill that center, or that vacuum, or that empty space, with pleasure. We call it pleasure, but it's not the pure pleasure as we know it. But this is what happened. Malchut receives that light, feels kind of like what we call bread of shame, meaning that it was taking so much for itself that it decided, I feel different than the creator. I feel I'm opposite and far away from the creator. So it decided basically to do this restriction based on what we call the bread of shame. But it's not shame as we know it, right? It's simply a restriction. That restriction happened, and that's basically what we have here in Gagalta. Gagalta means skull, means basically the first parsuf that we're going to be known as Adam Kadmon. And when the light goes in, I'm not going to go into the numbers, but the numbers represent, the desires, the levels of desires. If you know about the levels of desire 4 means desire to receive completely. Then desire 4-3 is going to be a mix of desire to receive with a desire to receive and give, and things like that. And then we're going to have desire to receive and give with the desire of Bina, which is to bestow. Then we're going to have desire to bestow with the first desire, which is a desire to give. And then desire to give only with 0, which is bon, which is the minimum desire that a vessel can have. And 0 is Keter, 1 is Chokmah, 0 is basically like this Keter, is Gagalta. 1 is Chokmah, 2 is Bina, 3 is Ramping, and 4 is Malchut. So it's what you need to know is Gagalta is Keter, Ab is Chokmah, Sag is Bina, Ma is Zeramping, and Bon is Malchut. And the name Ab, Sag, Ma, and Bon come from the following. It comes from the feeling of this Yod, He, and Vav, He. So the name Av refers to the letter Ain and Bet, which are written Av, which is 72. In combination, they're called Av and have the numerical value 72. It represents the tetragrammaton out as follows: the Yod, Vav, Dalet, the He, Yod, Vav, Yod, Vav, and the He, Yod, which has that numerical value of 72. So the numerical value of each of these letters will give you 72. Then we're going to have Sag. And Sag, basically, Sag means, Samek and Gimel, which is 63. And it's the same thing. Each letter that is filled with the Yod, He, and Vav, and He. In this case, we're filling it with an Aleph, and the Vav will give us 63. And the 45, which is Ma, which is Seramping, right? Ma is basically 40 and 5, 45. What we're going to have is the He, the Vav, and the last He filled with an Aleph, right? So what we're going to have is the value of each of these letters, 45. Same thing with Bon. Bon is basically backwards, and it's for they use, it sounds more like Ben, like son. But what you're gonna have is Nun Bet instead of Ben Nun or Beit Nun, and Nun Bet is 52. But for the use in Kabbalah, they call it Bon. It's easier, it's like a son, right? But it's Malchut. And here there's basically no filling with Aleph or Yod or anything like that. It's just the Yod itself, the He with the He, the Vav with the Vav, the He with another He, and that will give you the numerical value of 52. So these are the fillings of the name Havaya. They all correspond to these parsufim called Ab, Sag, Ma, and Bon. And if you want to know more about this, I covered this in the intermediate classes, how these parsufim actually came to be. But these are, believe it or not, these things are up there, right? But these things are also happening in here, in Serampin or Malchut. These things are gonna start happening as well. So the same pattern is gonna be repeating itself. Okay. See what else we have. Okay, so another thing that in Kabbalah, in order to understand the Zohar, we do is we study the book of creation, Sephiroth, where the letter represents sometimes, like different creations, different things in creations. The combinations of these letters can create something like a month, a planet, or something like that. And this is basically to the book of creation. The Sephiroth is there basically to give us an idea of how the creator play with these letters, or how this DNA that we talk about it's working or works. Okay, so keep in mind that these letters, as I mentioned before, not only are vessels that will give us information about the light and the work of the creator inside the vessel, but also it's a DNA of creation. It's a DNA how the creator put these things together, and now how we need to decode this DNA in order to understand the place that we're living in creation at this moment, right? So what the Sefer Yesid and the Sefer Zohar use is the language of branches and roots and branches, actually, which is in order to identify something in spirituality, it uses a name of something that is already existing in physicality. So a book will be a book in physical reality, but in Kabbalah, a book means something else, something that contains this letter, something that contains information. It's something that we need to find out the information within it. So it's like a code that we need to decode, right? So for us, a book, a sefer, you know, a sifra, it's a number, sefer, saper, communication, you know, things like that. So it brings more information than just saying a book in English, right? In Hebrew, it has more, okay? So the language itself, what is called the roots of the words, indicate the properties of the spiritual object that is described. For example, the name Adam originates from Adama, earth, which emphasizes the significance because it also comes from the word Adame, which is similar to who? Similar to the upper one, right? Similar to the creator. The name Yaakov comes from the word Yekeb, to get around, right? To get around, or supplanters, as it is translated sometimes. And who he needs to go around, who he needs to basically take over. Esau is the desire to receive, the very restrictive nature of our ego, right? And there are many such examples in the Torah that we can see also where the root of the name actually give us the information of why or what that person actually is supposed to be, or that character in the Torah is supposed to be correcting, or what force it represents. So in Kabbalah we use what is called the language of Kalim and Sephiroth, the language of vessels and Sephiroth spheres, right? Or Sephiroth sapphire, you know, or whatever you want to call it. So the shape of each letter in the Torah, each letter and the elements of the structure indicates all the properties of the general state of the spiritual object, which is a sephirah or suf, which that particular letter depicts. The order of the letters in a word, this is very important. This is where we get the codes. The order of letters in a word indicates the connection between the spiritual object, Sephiroth, and their shared properties and actions. Attainment of a word's spiritual meaning signifies an ascent to the spiritual level of that object. When that happens, he who attains it becomes the very word, assume its name. Man's name keeps changing as he ascends the spiritual degrees. It is determined by the degree he's on. As he assumed the name of that degree, it is therefore said that everyone can become like Moshe, like Moses, attain the degree called Moshe, which was to call to the Creator as a friend, call to the Creator, or talk to the Creator as a friend. And this is something important because in here what he's telling us is, in a nutshell, what we just studied in the previous section, which is the mother lends close to her daughter, is that as we attain that level Bina, our name changed from Malchut to Bina, right? We become from a vessel that is all egoistic to a vessel that is all bestowal. The word itself, in its corporeal reading, it's corporeal, right? Meaning indicates a spiritual root and its branch, which is a consequence of it in the word, in the physical word. A combination of words indicates an entire spiritual process, which, as a rule, has a corresponding action, meaning corresponding mitzvah or commandment in our world. Names change depending on the aspect that requires clarification. For example, by elements of Sephiroth. So Keter, as we can see, has none. The Chokmah has fire, Bina water, Serampin air, Malchut earth. Then by color, we're gonna have that Keter has none. Keter has no color, no word. It shouldn't be word point, it should be word point. No word point, line, vowel symbol, or anything like that. It's from Chokmah down that we have Chokmah has the element fire, the color white, the word point north. Oh yeah, word point north. And line is gonna be the right line. The vowel symbol is gonna be shuruk. Bina is gonna be water. Color is gonna be red. The word point is gonna be east. The line is gonna be left, and the vowel symbol is gonna be hirik. Okay. Now, make sure I change this. And Zeramping, the element is air. The color is green. The word point is south. Line is the center line. The vowel symbol is holam. Malchut is gonna be the earth. Color is black. The word point is west. There's no line and there's no vowel symbol. And you're gonna say, but wait a minute, didn't you say that this over here was basically Neshama, which is Binah, Da'at, and Chokmah, and this one, Ruach, in the middle, you said that it was Hagat, which is basically part of Serampin, and the Nephesh over here, and now here you're changing the whole thing. You know that this is Chokmah, Binah, Serampin. Do you see Malchut in here? Because I don't see it, right? Because Malchut has none of this. So basically what you're going to see here is Chabad, Hagat, Nehi is basically Chabad, Hagat, Nehi, right? But, and this is where Kabbalah gets confusing. What you see here is, it will change as from where we see it, because for example, you will find that the east will be Chesed, or the south will be Chesed, right? And then the north will be Geburah, right? And then you're gonna see the west and the east are gonna be different than what you see here. And this is where it gets confusing. You gotta make sure that you understand from where the Zohar is talking about, you know, because something that I tell you that you should know about this moment: red, green, black, and white. Those colors, memorize them, because Chokmah, Bina, Serampin, Malchut are gonna be called by these colors as well. Okay, so it mentions white. It talks about wisdom. When it says, you know, why you shouldn't mix white with red, which means, you know, milk and meat, is because white represents the pure giving desire, and red is actually restrictive. Bina restricts itself because it wants to give, right? And you cannot mix those two desires. Nothing can be mixed. They have to be basically in a coupling, united. So it's a difference between mixing and a coupling, okay? So keep that in mind. But I want you to pay attention to this, write it down, and then compare as we go with other things. Because, for example, we will see that these things are going to change as we read the Torah and as we read the Zohar. We're going to see that the north, east, south, west is going to change, that the fire, water, air is going to change, because we know water represents mercy, right? The mercy is chesed. However, here we have in Bina. Also understand, you know, that Bina is going to, or chesed is going to be called the south, right? And then Geburah is going to be called the north, which in here is Chokmah. And later you're going to understand why. Right now, keep that in mind. That's it. Make a note. I need to understand this in the future. All right? But it's not important at this moment to see that contradiction, because at the end it's not going to be any contradiction. You're going to see that. So I'm going to leave it until this part here. In the next section, we're going to talk a little bit more. There's a lot more that we need to cover for this paragraph in specific. We're gonna cover later the punctuation marks, the Hebrew alphabet, nekudot, and how these nekudot actually have to do with what is called the letters. And then we're gonna go letter at a time, the tav, the shin, and see how this conversation with the Creator takes place and takes form. So as always, I hope you have enjoyed this class. I hope that this slow pace is helping you understand a little bit better the Zohar, at least the introduction. So when you start reading the Zohar by yourself, you know, you have at least the basics of what it is that the Zohar is talking about. There's much more that we can talk, you know, it just cannot cover it because it will be basically advanced Kabbalah. I'm not sure, you know, that we are all at that level, including myself, to talk about at that level. I like to keep myself in the level of the intermediate, so the advanced Kabbalah, somebody else can teach that, right? That's more, it needs to be in Hebrew. It cannot be in English. Those who study Kabbalah seriously, they can understand that advanced Kabbalah can be understood only when you go to the Hebrew classes, not in a translated class, because it's a lot of things that are going to be missed. It's a lot of meditations and contemplations and things like that only in the Hebrew you can get and grasp that. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed. As always, make sure you subscribe and like this video, share it. It's very important. So far we're keeping these slides for these lessons for free. As long as we can afford to keep them free, we will, but pay it forward. Remember, these lessons are not called the book of Zohar, the lessons on the book of Zohar only. They're called also receiving and giving lessons. You're receiving this lesson, give something in exchange. Share the class. Talk about the Zohar with somebody else. Make sure you share something. Make sure you give tzedakah. Make sure you do something. Make sure you participate with others in loving, practicing loving your neighbor as yourself. The thing is, do something. Not just study the Zohar and keep it all in and oh, how wonderful this thing is and how peaceful it makes me feel. That's all emotional and it's all a mental trap. The real work is out there. We're just studying. Now we need to go out there and work. The real work is now we receive, now let's give. And remember, when you are taking a class, you hear the word taking a class, you need to make sure that you're taking the class. You become a consumer, right? In order not to become a consumer, receive the light that class or that lesson is giving you, whether it is from this lesson or other lesson, and share it with somebody else. Okay, receive and share, receive and give. That's the whole point of this lesson. So I'm gonna emphasize that at the end of each lesson, and to make sure that people understand there's an intention here. The intention is not to study Zohar only, is to practice that receiving of the light and sharing the light, is to practice that loving ourselves and loving our neighbor as we love ourselves. Okay, so this is it. I hope you have enjoyed. I'll see you next time in the lesson number 9, in which we're gonna continue studying the letters of Rabbi Hamnuna Saba, and we're gonna start then letter by letter understanding the conversation of the Creator with the letters of the Hebrew alphabet and how he used them to create what we call today creation, right? The creation that we live in and the world we live in. Until then, shalom.